Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful September the 8th, 2020. Buongiorno deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, fall has officially snuck up on us, and football season, an abbreviated college football season, is upon us also. We've seen remnants of it already.
Yep.
But we also want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders, who don't skip on anything and don't sneak up on anybody. They're there to serve every day.
They do a great job every day. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love doing the pause. Even CNN is doing the pause, Big C, but we'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones, Big C. Why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, we lose over 22 veterans a day in this country to suicide. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. It would be great if our administration could do that every day, Charlton, as they spend the days lying about what they're doing for the veterans, and they're not. They don't talk about the suicide that veterans are going through.
No, they don't.
If the administration was as promising as what they talk about and how they help out the veterans and care about the veterans, then they would put more emphasis on taking care of these veterans in mental health needs and financial needs, Charlton, just in social needs. They don't do that. We talk about it, and more Americans need to talk about it. We have veterans that are homeless, that are destitute. They have mental and physical ailments, Charlton, after getting out of the armed services. And America needs to pay more attention to that. I know we struggle as a country, but think about those veterans who allowed us the ability to be able to struggle or prosper in a country, Charlton. We just don't do enough as a country for the veterans. Over 22 a day lost to suicide.
Wow.
An horrific number. I know COVID-19 is on everybody's mind, but the veterans also need to be on your mind every day.
Very well said, Big C. We'll do our best. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get us some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get them some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, and sports teams are doing it too. Watch real estate and TV work for you. Pick up the phone, call 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can learn about opportunities there. Big C, I know we have COVID we're dealing with. Donald Trump's holding another rally, and he forgot to tell everybody to wear a mask, or maybe he's doing it intentionally, Big C. Sometime they had the kamikaze pilots. They were in World War II. When they decided that they wanted to crash, they took out as many people as possible, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's COVID. That's COVID-19 and Donald Trump's mantra. Don't worry about COVID-19. I've told you a few weeks ago, the White House has moved on beyond COVID-19. They're dealing with other issues. COVID-19 is an American problem, not an administration problem, Charlton. We as American citizens have to protect ourselves because our government and our president is not going to do that. It's the last thing that he's concerned about. He's saying they have COVID-19 under wraps. They're on top of it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they even had a pharmaceutical company pull out of the vaccine race, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because there's some illness that have happened with, potential patients that they use as test guinea pigs in these lab researches, Charlton. So
yeah.
all of this that Donald Trump is talking about having a vaccine before, the election,
yeah.
That's another one of them damn lies that he's been telling.
Yeah. The company is called AstraZeneca. They put the pause. They went on pause, Big C. It's called AstraZeneca. They went on pause because of COVID-19 vaccine that Donald Trump has been pushing, to get some of that insider trading for his friends. They're saying, wait a minute, pause, pump your brakes. It's gotten people sick, and it's a shame, but some people do anything they can to make a buck, even if it's pushing a vaccine that gets people sick. I want to tell everybody all over, what did Don King say? Only in America. And I'm speaking to this Russian lady that keeps reaching out to me, asking me, who am I going to vote for? Like the great Don King said, only in America can you vote in the United States election. Please text the word vote to 26797. Text the word vote to 26797 and register. Tell all your friends. Tell them Big C, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, all the good people said, get out there and vote, especially in the swing states, and make this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, I know we always tease you about eating meat and eating. I think you've eaten everything that crawled around on 4 feet or legs, or even sometimes 2 will do with those Yardbirds, Big C. But I want to tell America, when you're getting ready for football season, all you football fans, when you get ready for the kickoff of the season, make sure you ask for the Big C Burger. That's right, the Big C Burger. And you can get it at participating restaurant. It tastes ooh yeah good. And it's only at participating restaurants. Big C, the great thing about our burger, you don't know what kind of meat you're going to eat. That's the good thing about it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as long as it's hot and not moving, Charlton, you can enjoy the meat.
You can enjoy the meat. None of those foo-foo burgers where you know what you're going to eat. You want to get the kind of hamburger where you don't know what the meat is. Big C has this potpourri of meats, and I really appreciate the Big C Burger being served at restaurants near you. I want to get into some things. I think I saw, but I'm not sure. I think BYU beat one of our military academies. I think it was 55-3. I didn't even know the game was on. I mean, there's so much talk about how to get football back. I didn't even know they were beating up the military 55-3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Naval Academy was outclassed last night, Charlton, by BYU in their home opener. I mean, they gave up more rushing yards than the Naval Academy had given up since 2003 in a game.
Wow.
BYU just ran roughshod over them last night, Charlton. It was a physical mismatch. The Navy has always been undermanned physically, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you think about the cadets that are in the academy, they're looking for a long-term career in serving in the military academy, Charlton, in military service,
yeah,
not having aspirations to play pro football.
Yeah. And just like I said, I didn't know it was on. I mean, people clamoring so much. We got to get football back. What are our boys going to do if they can't play for free and make coaches millions of dollars? Well, I didn't know the game was on, and I try to stay on top of everything. But I want to ask you your thought, if it's hitting you the same, as the networks are scrambling to find who's gonna play who on TV. I think BYU with the game last night. I don't even know what conference it was on, but the scrambling. You got the Pac-12 is mostly by Fox Sports, and Big 12 Fox Sports. Big 10 games, a lot of them end up on ABC. In the SEC, they have CBS and their own networks. But the problem with them pushing so hard for TV, Big C, I don't even know where BYU was on with Navy Academy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they were on ESPN. I don't know if the networks are going to scramble because there's still enough games out there to be played that you can find content to put on air. You know, the thing that you had last night, you had no fans in the stands at the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
It was empty, and this is what you're going to get in a lot of stadiums. I think that's what not really attracting a lot of fans to the games, Charlton, is that we're so used to having fanfare, the momentum, the jubilance of the crowd interacting in the game, and players feed off of that.
Yeah.
And now that they're not having that, you can see a lot of lack of emotion in games, even in the NBA bubble. You don't hear the fanfare that you would normally get when a team goes on a run or they're stopping a team, Charlton. This is something that's gone, and baseball has been quiet in the stadiums also.
Yeah, it really has been quiet. So I guess the mothership, they're going to focus on the ACC and the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, and the Atlantic Coast Conference, electing to play football so far. So we'll see what happens. I just want to, I was hoping I could get the game, but I didn't know it was even on. I guess I haven't paid attention to everything because it's hard to pay attention to things when you don't have games on TV. But I want to, tip our hat to the Naval Academy. They do so much trying to keep us safe. It's amazing how much disrespect BYU showed them last night on the turf mix. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is one chance you get a chance to beat the American military.
Yeah.
And so these college kids take that full opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But Navy will rebound, Charlton, the type of offense that they run. They only had 3 starters returning from last year's team. So, it's a work in progress, and you didn't have a lot of fall practice.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of fall practice. I want to ask you something that's really near and dear to my heart. Because these conferences, they're all doing at least what they feel is the right thing. NCAA college football, I don't want to make you throw up because I know you're one of the guys down south that you guys live so much about the Southern football, but the Big 12 conference, primarily Texas, Oklahoma schools. I don't know how Iowa got Iowa State in the Big 12 when they play all the schools down the south. But they haven't, I think people have been listening to you, Big C, because they put it in paper. It's called an anti-racism campaign. Now, you've always said you're either racist or anti-racist. And they put on a campaign. It's called the anti-racism campaign. Now, it includes public announcements. And will the Big 12 rebuke Donald Trump is what I want to know. Will they rebuke Donald Trump for saying, fire those SOBs for asking for liberty and justice for all? Or will they just shut up, play sports, as Attorney General William Barr says there is no racism? So how does that Big 12 conference have an anti-racism campaign when the Attorney General says there's no racism, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're sitting in the hotbed of racism when you're looking at the Big 12 and that swath of the country, Charlton, on how those people react to people of color, and especially down on the southern border. I mean, Texas is in the Big 12, and we see what the administration has done down on the southern border, and Texas, the governor there, has been complicit to it.
Yeah.
We've also seen the rally that they had in Oklahoma where they had a breakout after Trump had his rally in Tulsa. So, lip service is always good, and I always talk about that. People doing lip service. You can put stuff in writing. But, you're racist or you're anti-racist. You can't sit there and just put it in writing and say, well, we're going to let people decide. You got to make a statement on that.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. You're straddling the fence when you put that in writing.
Yeah.
You haven't sided one side or the other, Charlton. So that lets me think that you're complicit to it.
Well, how do you feel when you've been saying you're either racist or anti-racist, and them good old boys stole your slope? They put it in writing. They didn't say we're doing an anti-discrimination. We're not trying. They didn't say we're doing a social justice reform. They're saying we're doing an anti-racist policy. It includes public announcements and social justice messages during it. Do you feel that they've been plagiarizing your message, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you can make all the public announcements that you want.
Yeah.
But what do they mean? What are the consequences of your public announcement?
Yeah.
What are the consequences of your slogans and banners, Charlton? You got to give me a consequences to your actions. That's what you have to do. Just don't give me lip service.
Yeah. I think I appreciate when people make an effort because nobody has a panacea for everybody, as POTUS has been trumping everything he puts up his nose, saying this is a cure.
Yes, you do. Think about it. If you're a corporation, all right?
Yeah.
And you sign non-disclosure agreements with your employees.
Yeah.
And they break that non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
You fire them. And they have no recourse That's called panacea.
Yeah.
So you can lay down whatever panacea that you want to have. It's up to the individual. Everybody has that opportunity when you're in charge. If you're not in charge, then you have to just follow the leader.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is even lawyers who push for social justice may have a different way to get there. You know, people travel by planes, trains, and automobiles. They just want to get to the same destination. So,
but if you always talk about going to court and utilizing lawyers.
Yeah.
Then you file that lawsuit based on getting through there, Charlton.
Yeah.
You file it directly. You don't file something, say, okay, well, we want to have a car wash this weekend. No, you go for, social justice. You file for social justice reform. You sue somebody based on that. You file a complaint based on that. You don't file it based on something else that somebody's living next to you and you don't like that.
Yeah. Well, this is what I want to ask you. I don't know if we're on the different page. I think I'm going on the airplane. I think you're going by the train, Big C. I think this is my opinion. When the Big 12 says that we want to have the chance to use a variety of platforms to do advertising in the programming that will make a difference. Like, what is making a difference? This is my opinion. Having people put Black Lives Matter, that's fine, but it doesn't work in the court of law. Having people saying justice for all, that's fine, but it does not work in the court of law. This is what I'd love the Big 12 to do, since they've been stealing our stuff anyway. You need to get those conference commissioners and your boosters that give you tens of millions of dollars every year for your programs collectively. You gotta, first of all, denounce the bully. If there's a bully on campus, you denounce that bully. You call him the principal, the vice president, the school teachers, whatever it is. If you have a bully in the biggest pulpit in the country, and he's saying that fire those SOBs when they ask you, please quit killing us. When he says racism does not exist. When you get shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in your back, they gotta ask, in my opinion, they gotta get rid of this immunity clause for bad police officers, and they also gotta read the color of law. That's better than putting Black Lives Matter on a billboard. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you get rid of the immunity for police officers who commit criminal acts, Charlton, that's social justice reform right there in a nutshell. Period. You think about how many people would feel safe in America knowing that you're not going to get shot potentially just on a traffic stop.
Yeah.
So when you get rid of that immunity that police officers have, Charlton, across the board, to make them equal to any public servant, Charlton, who commits a crime, that they're not protected in committing a crime. You shout down the Oval Office, the presidency, for committing racist rhetoric ever since he's been in office.
Yeah.
Disparaging women, disparaging people in the military, disparaging people of color. You get rid of that. When you start talking down that and running ads and billboards, then I believe the BS that you're spewing.
That's important. And now I think we're on the same page. Because it's not enough to say, hey, we're going to take a knee. Okay, thanks for taking a knee. Nothing's changed in the court. You got legislators that can go to court. They can go to Congress, petition Congress. Lobbyists that can petition Congress to change law. You got a lot of, this is what I know you disagree with me when I talk about what Kirk Herbstreit did the other day, because I think it came from his heart, Big C, whether it was 5 years later or not. Some guys will never do it. They'll go to their grave not saying anything. But if you really care about what you're having the whole conference do, you got to have what Dr. King had, which is a march on Washington. And that's what created the need for the Civil Rights Act and voter registration for Black Americans. Not because they took a knee, not because they went on TV and said, everybody please be nice to us. They actually marched to Washington. Do you think the Big 12 and all of their political influence will ever make that happen? I know they will if he said enough, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, you don't have to have a march on Washington. You got to realize each one of those states in the Big 12 have a state Congress, a state legislator, a state attorney general, a state governor. They can change the laws within those states. You don't have to have a march on Washington. You want to talk about striking out racism?
Yeah.
And that's all you got to do. You can do it on the state level there in those Big 12 states, Charlton.
Yeah.
We don't need to encumber Washington in that. We know the racist is running Washington, so do it in your state. If the Big 12 is serious about what they're talking about, then have state legislators change the laws in the Constitution of the state. You don't have to worry about changing the United States Constitution. You can change the state laws, Charlton, to be anti-racist.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good, Big C. There's more than one way to get from the East Coast to the West Coast, and at some point in time it has to be in law. just like they put it in law. I want to go to another level, because I'm telling you, that thing called the reticular activating system, as I still listen to a lot of brethren, most of them don't even talk about the law. They just want social justice. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know, social justice, that I can take a knee. Forget about taking a knee. Get into the court system, whether it's the state or the federal level, until you do that, nothing changes. And they got to get the immunity laws passed. So, and this would help the good cops.
You don't need the court, Charlton. I just stated.
You got to have the courts.
You have the state legislature. You have the state Congress. You have the state attorney general. You have the governor of the state. You can change the laws without going to court. You do it in the state assembly. That's where you do it at. The court is not going to change the law in the state. It's going to happen in the state assembly, the state house of representatives, the state attorney general, and the state governor. That's how laws are changed in the state. When you go to court, that's just a lawsuit that's in that one jurisdiction. You could be in the smallest town in that state. That law only affects that jurisdiction. Get to the state legislature where it has impact on the entire state.
Where I agree and disagree, Thurgood Marshall, when you look about Supreme Court justice, he did not make it a state issue. It was a federal law. If you make it a state issue, some state can say, okay, we agree. Other states can say no. If it's not a federal Big C, then you have each individual state.
It started out as a state issue. It started out in Kansas. It started out in the state of Kansas. He lost in the state of Kansas, Charlton. It was a state issue. Brown versus the Board of Education. He ended up taking it to the Supreme Court after going through several appellate scenarios, Charlton. So it started in the court and it ended up in the Supreme Court. Once you get into the Supreme Court, now you're affecting federal laws, Charlton. So he started out on the state level and lost. That's why he ended up in the Supreme Court, to make it a federal issue. But when you start on a state level, it is not a federal issue. It took years to get in front of the Supreme Court, Charlton, Brown versus the Board of Education. It started in Kansas.
My point exactly. He lost at the state level, didn't he? He won at the federal level.
But that's my point. That's my point. You keep going to court on the state level, and the state level only affects that state. He knew he needed to have a broader spectrum, Charlton, so he went to the Supreme Court and challenged the Constitution. Because on the state level, they did not recognize the United States Constitution. They went on their state constitution. And that's why I keep saying you can't just sit there trying to sue somebody. You have to get in front of law-adjusting individuals.
And that's why I said you got to have a march on Washington. That's with the state. That's the federal level, Big C. I'm not talking about the state. But we're saying the same thing. You just have more. You have different flavor in your Kool-Aid. It's all fair and love and war. I wanna just take this moment, as some people are arguing about. I can't believe we got BYU and Navy. I mean, nobody saw the game, but they can't wait to get football back. NFL football. Minnesota Vikings, they follow Big C Sports too, because they're asking for social justice legislation, which has to happen at the federal level. You can start at the states, but some states might say, hell no, we're not giving you nothing. It has to go federal, then trickle down. If you think about this, Big C, will they rebuke the police immunity clauses that they have that protects the bad cops? I want to ask you this. If you're a good law enforcement officer, and I have them in my family, we hear the worst thing, in their opinion, is to have bad cops. Internal affairs doesn't always rush them. They don't always flush them out, Big C. If you're a good police officer, wouldn't you love to get rid of that immunity clause so that people cannot go out and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, shoot people in the back 7 times and say, well, he felt afraid of his life? If the good cops know that they also have help from the federal government in getting rid of the bad cops, why would anybody oppose that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you don't hear the good cops stumping for that law change, Charlton. That's the problem. What is a good cop when he won't advocate for having that immunity clause changed in the police curriculum?
Yeah.
So he's part of the bad scenario that's going on. Because if good cops wanted that rule changed, Charlton, all they have to do is get their lobbyists to do that.
Yeah.
They can talk to their congressmen and their senators, Charlton, and it would become a federal law change if the good cops wanted that. Evidently, the good cops don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and you say we're going to protect and serve. I appreciate what the Minnesota Vikings are doing. I think they're doing a $1 million social justice push, for kickoff Big C. And I know it happens 3 months after the Minnesota Vikings ownership pledged $5 million for social justice causes throughout the United States. And in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, and the team's social justice committee announced on Tuesday that nearly $1 million will go toward the launch and the expansion of multiple initiatives. We just told you the initiatives. You got to stop police officers from killing people without cause. That's an initiative. It has to go to the federal level, state and federal level. That pleases everybody, if that pleases the court. And I would beg our decent law enforcement officers, we know you guys want to get home too. You just want to get home to your families. But you can't get home safe if you got bad cops that are breaking the law, and you know they are, and then you feel afraid because they may turn on you or your family, so you're not going to turn them in. If he makes a federal mandate, they got to be turned in, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it really doesn't even take the cops to do that, Charlton. We have senators, 98 white senators in America, Charlton, that can change that law in a heartbeat. You have a president that can change that law in a heartbeat. And, the president says he stands with law enforcement. Well, make law enforcement legitimate.
Yeah.
They can't hide behind immunity and just kill people.
Yeah, I agree. I want to touch on this one more thing because it's so important to me, because there's no one in the history of the universe that's talked about needing social justice reform. I know some guys are out there yelling about who's going to score more touchdowns this year in college and the NFL, who's going to win the Heisman Trophy, who's going to win the Super Bowl. But you black athletes, you know this is true. When you don't have that uniform on and you're getting pulled over by law enforcement, they don't care that you're trying to win a Heisman Trophy, and they don't care that you're trying to win the Super Bowl. They want to make sure that they get home safely and you get home safely too. And it's important to have that real conversation. So now that, and this might make some people throw up before the Big C pause, now that the NFL Big C has admitted that Colin Kaepernick was right and that POTUS was wrong when he says fire the SOBs, this is, I believe, is so strong. They believe what you've been saying, and I've been saying it too. We need congressional civil rights legislation that must end this bad police immunity. It would help mainstream society. Think about this. If white women, white women going home or going to work, if they were pulled over and shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the back by a white police officer in front of their children, do you think, Big C, that we would have ever had any type of pushback on the white women taking a knee saying, we don't want to have this happen anymore? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, we would have pushback if black people were walking up and down the street with AR-15 shooting people while they were marching. Anytime you start shooting white citizens, Charlton, in the car with their children, you will have police reform. But you don't get that because the woman sitting in the car looks like the guy holding the gun. And the kids that are sitting in the car look like the kids he got at home. So he's not distant from them, Charlton. We've been dehumanized as blacks in America. Ever since our introduction into this country, we've been dehumanized. And the Constitution still dehumanizes us because we're still classified as 3/5 of a human being in the Constitution. And so until they ratify that we're 100% a person in the Constitution, you will never have the laws changed against police shooting black people in America, Charlton.
So if this had happened where a white woman was shot 7 times, or on the ground with a police officer with his knee on her neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I mean, it wouldn't have taken that long since Colin Kaepernick took his knee for people to do this. I'm glad it's happening now, but I'm asking my white brethren, if it happened to white women, would we have taken so long to demonize those people and say, oh, they're anti-military, they're anti-flag because they don't want to be shot anymore, or they don't want to be choked out anymore, or they want their kids to get home safe? And I know it's taking time for people to get to it, and I really appreciate they're trying to make an effort. Big C, we're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. It's amazing that almost everyone in the sports universe is talking about social justice, and they're putting it in writing. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow us on Xfinity, Comcast TV, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to touch on something here because it's so important to me. It's almost as if you ever think you're going down the right road because you don't see signs. Just sometimes you're driving, you don't know if you're going the right way or not. You're just going by instinct. And going by instinct and knowledge, I want to say that we've been the vanguards in this movement, at least when it comes on the air. I know a lot of people are confident now, and as we called out over the last couple of years, we're asking for our white brethren to get involved. I have a well-respected she's a white friend, professional Republican woman who has friends, many white friends, and many white families she's introduced me to. Would you believe they're in the cannabis business, Big C, which is now legal in California on the state level, not on the federal level. They're doing it big time. But would you believe she's never spoken to me about being racially profiled, never been questioned by law enforcement about what you're doing in this neighborhood, never been told that we need you to get out of the car and hands on the ground. They've never had to deal with that. So, and you may not know this answer, what could our white brethren or sisterin do to really push for liberty and justice for all and the immunity clause, even when POTUS tries to say, be afraid of us, Big C? Your thoughts?
As I stated a few moments ago, Charlton, when you changed and ratified the Constitution stating that black people are 100% black people, not 3/5, 100%. That's what it takes. Once we get recognized as a 100% person, Charlton, then we are not dehumanized. Anything that's not 100% a person is dehumanized, Charlton. And when the United States keeps that in the Constitution, that's how it's going to be. Look at this for a perfect example. We're dealing with COVID-19 in this country, and I've always stumped black people about this.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of black population in America?
About 13%.
About 13%. Think about this, Charlton, in COVID-19. Who is it affecting more than anybody else in America?
African Americans.
African Americans. So if you sacrifice 13% of the white population in America, and 13% and that 13% of the population that's African American, what do you eliminate in America, Charlton? You eliminate the blacks in America from COVID-19. You wonder why the administration is letting COVID-19 run as rampant as it is, why they're not trying to do anything with this racism in the White House. This has been his whole thing, talking about S-hole country. President Obama ran an S-hole country, as he said when he was president. This is what Trump's thoughts on him was. Trump has been a racist before he was a president, even more of a racist since he became president. And when you look at his lack of empathy towards COVID-19 victims in America, knowing which race in the population it hits the most, black people, this is why he doesn't give a damn about COVID-19. He is hoping that it affects the black race in eliminating a large majority of them, Charlton. That's what this administration is trying to do in not going out to fight COVID-19 or pay attention to it. We're getting distracted by saying, hey, get sports back. We got to have sports back.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is maliciously killing black America with COVID-19, not trying to stem the tide of COVID-19, not asking for people to social distance, not asking for people to wear masks. He is killing black America, and we're talking about sports, us, and every other sports show in the country, Charlton.
Yeah. We've always been advocates for doing the best you can to stay informed with your own doctor. I want to touch on something because you bring up the sports thing, and it's all intertwined. And I really believe this because I don't 100% agree with everything you just said, but I have a hard time denying it. I just don't want to stomach it, but I don't disagree or agree per se. NBA basketball. I know where they want to talk about the bubble. One of the most segregationist cities in the United States, at least for black athletes, has been the Boston, Massachusetts area. And I know it's just ironic. We were saying you said something I disagreed with when they put Black Lives Matters on the ground or on the floor or on end zones, and you said people couldn't trample on it. And then about a week later, the Boston Red Sox put it up behind Fenway Park. It's just ironic it came about a week after you were talking about that. I didn't really agree with you, but I understand. Boston, Massachusetts, the Boston Celtics, they've adopted Big C's thoughts. I believe I'm putting that banner up on Fenway Park by the Turnpike and not on the ground. Boston Celtics, I think they've adopted Big C's thoughts. They admit $25 million over the next 5 years to help create social justice legislation. They got to read the color of law, and they got to use lawmakers like Big C Sports has been saying to protect the civil rights, and you got to end this bad police officers' immunity. And Boston has Cambridge, Massachusetts, Boston College. They have a lot of universities around there and lawmakers. Big C, what would your message be if you spoke to the Boston area and the lawmakers, not the fans, but the lawmakers? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to tell them you got to get rid of police immunity when they go out and commit a felony against an American citizen. Boston has been one of the most racist cities in the United States. They've gotten a lot of praise because of the championship banners that they've been raising over the last 2 decades in that city, Charlton, with all their sports teams, really longer than that.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the only thing Boston can be praised for is their sports team. Because they've been, an anti-black city forever. Ask Bill Russell.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even go back there when they retired his jersey. One of the greatest NBA players of all time. 11-time world champion. But he's dealt with racism his entire career in Boston, and when he left, he never went back. Think about that. A guy who should have been revered and held up on a pedestal, should have had a statue outside of Boston Gardens. He could not wait to leave town, Charlton, when his career was over.
Yeah.
So when we look at the lawmakers of Boston, I appreciate people pledging money.
Yeah.
I do that. But it comes down to who's going to vote, who's in the room where it happens. You can put out all the money you want as a professional organization. It's called a tax write-off.
Yeah.
A tax write-off. But you saying that you're going after legislation, be specific on what you're going after.
Yeah. And like I said to you many times, and I say to anyone listening all over the world, in fact, all over the universe, what I love about this platform is quit begging white people to tell us how to get out of this fog. If we want to clear the fog, it's going to take the sharpest black minds. And the reason I say that, just like I brought up the story, if and think about this, America, if white women that have been pushed all over Madison Avenue, every magazine, grocery store, TV commercial, print paper, they've been always used as a paragon of virtue. If those white women were shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the back, in front of their children, we wouldn't have had to have all this pain that Kirk Herbstreit was crying about. But I do appreciate it's going to take black men and black women to lead us out of this, and our good white brethren and sisters can help.
Let me tell you about an incident with a white woman, Charlton, back in the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
Name was Patty Hearst. Dad owned the Hearst Empire.
I remember.
And matter of fact, I think the San Francisco Chronicle out there where you live in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
She was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Yeah.
Allegedly black group, Charlton, in the mid-'70s. The feds, Charlton, blew up an entire city block because these people were armed like a militia. They blew up an entire city block in Philadelphia. You can Google it. This is what they did to protect a white woman. They didn't care how many people that they killed. They just knew these people were of color. So they blew up an entire city block. They dropped a bomb in the city of Philadelphia on American soil to protect a white woman. So they're not going to change the laws, Charlton, because police are not going to kill white women because they look like them. When they get up in the morning and they sit down at the breakfast table or they sit down at dinner, the white woman across the table from them, Charlton, look like the white woman that they pulled over on a traffic stop. They're not going to shoot her regardless of what she does.
And that's why we need our decent white women to stand up and push for legislation change on the federal level. I mean, Dolly Parton, I love Dolly Parton. She's had a thing that she said, you think our little white butts she has something to say about our little white butts aren't special. We know all life came from Africa. But it takes good people of all skin colors to do that. And I really mean that, Big C. I know a lot of good, decent people, no matter what color they are. At the same time, they got to push for it.
The United States Senate, Charlton. We can stump and advocate about every American citizen out there that's white, that's a good person. You need to go stand in front of the United States Senate and tell them, I know that you guys are good white people and you want black people to have equality in America. That's where your message is being lost because it's not getting to them. We can talk on the airwaves every day to decent white people all over America, all over the world. But it's those 98 white guys and women that are sitting up there in the United States Senate in Washington, D.C. that don't give a damn.
Well, I won't say they don't give a damn. I say they got to be led. And it's going to take...
if they don't give a damn, why don't they vote on it, Charlton? They've had, ever since they've been in the Senate of the United States, the ability to change these laws. These laws get to Mitch McConnell's desk, and all they do is collect dust. He's been there 37 years in Washington, watching bills collect dust.
That's why I say, Big C, if it takes the will of good people, and it's going to take all of us to do it. And if you understand what I'm saying... Instead of saying it's never going to change, I'm asking for our white brethren, even the ones that work out in Congress, in the halls of Congress and the Senate, even Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. We need people to understand that, but if we don't tell them what we need, they're going to think, hey, they're happy we put a Black Lives Matter painting on the street in Washington.
This, Charlton. You know, when you think about the government stimulus package that ran out at the end of July?
I believe July, August.
Stopped Americans from getting this $600 a month that they were getting from the relief from this COVID. Charlton, like I said, 13% of the population is black in America.
Yeah.
You can sacrifice that, and you sacrifice an equal number of white people, you still got them.
Yeah.
You wonder why Mitch McConnell won't address this issue, Charlton? He wants blacks to become more impoverished than what they were before. He wants them to be homeless. He wants them to be evicted. He wants them to not be able to pay their bills or take care of their children, to make them even more destitute, to give them a reason to lock them up because they may go out and commit a crime to feed their kids or keep them warm. So you have to understand those people that are sitting there in the United States Senate, Charlton, this is systematic culling what they're doing. If they let people in America, mainly brown people in America, go destitute, who benefits from it in the end?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with anything you said there. That's why it's the heart of good people to push for legislation, Big C. And I agree 100% what you said. It's called Malthusian, and I talked about that when COVID first hit. They don't care about but saving the minority communities, Big C. That's just my opinion, as painful as it is. But before we close out, it's just so important. I know I never want to be that dumb sports show that's arguing about who can shoot a basketball better or hit a baseball farther or throw a better football. The Shamrock Foundation with the Boston Celtics, they are doing their best, and I hope that they listen to what we're saying. Since you listen to what we said anyway, you put the banner up on Fenway Park in the Turnpike, you got to get legislation to change. You got to do it. If you don't do it, doesn't matter how many banners you put up. Big C, I want to touch on something here. College football, I know part of it says COVID doesn't exist, and he had another rally in North Carolina today, no mask. There's a city, I think in Sturgis, South Dakota, they had some motorcycle rally about a month ago, and they're one of the highest spiking areas in the country with COVID-19, and a lot of people in the state have been sick or even passed away since they had that rally. But college football is called California University of Pennsylvania is a senior football player. Listen to this, guys. We can't wait to get football back. His name is Jermaine Stevens. He's Jermaine Stevens Jr. He passed away after contracting COVID-19. His father played offensive tackle in the NFL for 5 seasons, from 1997 to the 2001 season. Stevens Sr. was a first-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1996. And you think about, we've already had an athlete fatality, and no one even knew that the BYU Navy game was on TV last night. And I'm sure like you guys and guys like Paul Feinbaum can't wait to say, hey, let's brush that under the carpet, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, Charlton, this is something you can't brush under the carpet. You think about Jermaine Stevens Jr., he was a 20-year-old senior at California State University of Pennsylvania. And he lost his life to COVID-19 because his willingness to want to play football and being out there practicing and working out with his fellow teammates, not practicing social distancing, not practicing all the things that we say that we need to do to stay safe in COVID-19. the university let him down, Charlton.
Yeah.
Let him down. They killed him. And this is something that should be on the cover of every news and sports outlet, Charlton, in America, that a college athlete dies from COVID-19. I said it would happen. I said it was just a matter of time.
I remember.
And it's happened, Charlton. At the first week of the season, it has happened. And so we've lost a young life. The 20-year-old offensive tackle lost his life. His dad played 5 years in the NFL. And so this is something that parents should not have to do, bury their children, Charlton. But now college athletics has sacrificed their first black athlete. Think about that. They've sacrificed their first black athlete. And there's going to be a wave of this occurring, Charlton, from COVID-19. When you think about the University of Clemson, the University of Oklahoma, they say they're no longer going to share their pandemic breakouts, Charlton, at their university. That they're no longer going to let it be known how many of their football players contact COVID-19. They're going to keep it under wraps, so they don't give a damn about their athletes. Think about the University of Tulsa. They pushed back their opening week game, Charlton, against Oklahoma State, because in that state where the president had a rally, they've had a COVID-19 breakout on their football team.
Wow.
So as we see this more and more with players contacting COVID-19 and teams saying, well, okay, we'll just push the game back because we're going to get them out there regardless. We know that they can't stay safe from COVID-19, so we're not concerned about sacrificing them.
Yeah, I guess we got to get football back. I know guys were saying, I can't wait until I can get into the studio, and they're broadcasting games from outside of the stadium, and they're using TV and teleprompters to make it seem like they're in there. So, it's, thoughts and prayers are with the family. But as I always said, and that's just my opinion, you can't leave your health and your life in the hands of people that don't love you. The sadness about that, Big C, we were asking about legislation, and I'm asking every black man that listens to our show, and every white woman and man too, no matter what color you are, Black Lives Matter has to be about legislation. It cannot be about putting signs on your back of your shirt. It cannot be about writing somebody's name on your tennis shoe. It cannot be about putting somebody's sticker on your sleeve. I mean, that's ancillary. If that's all you got, it's not going to work. You got to get into the legislation, the federal and the state level. NCAA Big 12 Commissioner Bob Brownsley, Big C, this week he said at just 5 days before a conference kicks off this season, even though we lost a player already to COVID-19, he said he did not paint an optimistic picture of college football in 2020. And scientists we've talked to have told us not to expect a lot, that COVID-19 will extend into 2 years, indicating that impact can last well into 2021. And the player's already lost his life, and hardly anybody's talking about it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we've constantly talked about this. As your president is constantly out there talking about he's going to have a vaccine very soon, maybe before a big day of election day, that America will have a vaccine. You spoke about earlier, AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
Pulled their research for a vaccine for COVID-19 because people have got ill from this alleged vaccine that they were out there testing on people, Charlton. So there's no remedy. The Big 12 commissioner just admitted, we know it's not safe.
Yeah.
We know that there's no way of protecting players in 2020, and most likely even in 2021 there's no way of protecting players. So let the bodies fall as they may. If we suffer death and life-threatening illnesses from COVID-19, oh well, we're still going to get our television money.
Who's got it better than us? Remember Jim Harbaugh in the Big Ten, Big C? They were, I guess, because of their rhetoric, they've gotten some parents that wanted to beat up the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference saying we got to get football back. And I'm sure those coaches are going to donate all their salary to the family of the first known victim of COVID-19, African-American football player. NCAA, Colorado, becomes the first university to sign a partnership with a sports betting company, betting on college sports, but players can't get any money. The NCAA's longtime anti-gambling stance has been prohibited Colorado from signing a partnership agreement with the sports betting company. Colorado said Tuesday that it has signed a deal, I think it's called Point Bet, a company headquartered in the state. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, here's Colorado, and they don't have state legislation allowing players to get paid but you can go out as a university and sign a partnership with a sports betting company. So we're talking about players fixing games, Charlton.
Really?
We saw that back in the 70s
Yeah.
when it started at Providence University,
Yeah.
matriculated on to Arizona State and a few other universities, Charlton, where basketball players were fixing games. This is going to become habit. I mean, Colorado legalized marijuana about a decade ago.
Yeah.
Now that the university can get involved with gambling, this is all the Pac-10 schools, Pac-12 schools, Charlton,
Yeah.
that are going to be coming in there. Think about how influenced those athletes are going to be when they come into playing a sport in Colorado. Not
Yeah.
just getting high, but taking wagers on games.
Yeah, but don't take a steak sandwich even though you can fix games. College football, another college football game has been postponed. It's been put on the pause due to COVID-19. Tulsa announced Monday that its game against Oklahoma State out of the Big 12, scheduled for Saturday, September 12th, has been paused until September 19th. And you listen to Big C Sports First, and it was sad news that we brought to you. And thank you for that information, Big C. I wasn't aware of it. But you're not going to see a lot of thoughts and prayers being given to the young man that lost his life to COVID-19. College football player. Your thoughts on the pushback with Tulsa and Oklahoma State, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to take you to your boy Kirk Herbstreit, as he wanted to cry the tears on game day on Saturday. Well, he cried the tears, Charlton, for the young African-American player that lost his life at California State College in Pennsylvania, Mr. Samuel. Will he cry for him? Will he say we should not play college football? We've had a death in college football. People won't listen to black people. Well, we lost a young black man, Charlton, 20 years old. 20 years old from COVID-19 because the willingness of his university to play college football and not protect his health and welfare. Let me see Kirk Herbstreit talk about that on Saturday. Then I will think that he might have been sincere about the tears that he shed last week.
Well, I understand that, but let me ask you another question. Is Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Jimbo Fisher, a lot of these good old boys that want to get their athletes out there and play, are they going to go by and touch the casket of this young man that lost his life doing what we've been telling them not to do? We've been saying don't do it. All of our broadcasters that are saying we got to get football back, are they going to go by and touch the casket? Or even will the coaches donate their whole money, their salary, to the tens of millions of dollars to the family members, or even to help to stop the spread of COVID-19? Or will they just say, hey, well, it's just an isolated incident? Big C, your thoughts?
You know who canceled football in the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, Charlton?
Who's that?
The presidents of the university. Had nothing to do with the athletic directors, had nothing to do with the head coaches. You had the presidents of the universities, the governing body of the entire institute, who employs and who can fire those individuals underneath them at any time that they want because they're at-will employees. The presidents of those universities that cancel football, those are the people, not the head coaches. I mean, the head coaches are just a figurehead. But it's the presidents of the universities. And when you think about those Power Threes that are playing, Charlton, the presidents of those universities don't give a damn. Will they be the pallbearers at the funeral?
The answer is no, they won't, Big C. In fact, they don't even talk about it. Man, that makes me really sick to my stomach. But people gotta decide. Don't let them put you out there. If you got kids, these parents that want to beat up the commission, the Big Ten, so your players and your children can go out there and suffer the same or similar fate, doesn't make sense.
Look at Mr. Samuel, who lost his life, Charlton. You know, you talk about the coaches in these Power Five, the Power Threes that are playing. The parents are allowing their children to go out there and participate.
Yeah.
The parents are not protecting their children.
No.
That's one of the things, that's the first oath you take as a parent, is to protect your child. You protect them. And then you have some man come to your house and say, well, I'm going to treat him like he's my son.
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's not sleeping on his couch, Charlton, at his house.
No.
He's not taking care of him. He's living off in some multi-million-dollar mansion. The player's staying in some dormitory room. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's be realistic about it.
Yeah.
That is not your son. That is somebody else's son. I do not blame one head coach that is playing football in America. I do not.
I do.
blame every parent for failing to protect their children.
I blame both, Big C, but especially the parents. I want to, before we close out today, college football, and in the wake of us just telling you this sad, tragic news about a young African-American player losing his life, college football player, COVID-19. You know, the one that POTUS said would just float away. It'll just go away. You know, POTUS says it doesn't affect young people because they're young and strong. College football, 10 Midwestern politicians, they urge, they beg, they implore the Big Ten to not pay attention to a young player losing his life to COVID-19, but they urge them to reconsider the postponement of his football season. We got to get those black kids out there. Of course, some of them are going to die, but look at all the money we'll make, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about, Charles, about 2 weeks ago we talked about the president of the medical school at Penn State University, talking about the scarring that it does to the heart of athletes, and they had 35% of their players that had this scarring of the heart from COVID-19. Penn State is in Pennsylvania, where Mr. Samuels lost his life.
That's right.
Same state. So the doctor at Penn State understands COVID-19 and the risk that it puts on athletes who potentially go out there and play.
Yeah.
Mr. Samuels lost his life in Pennsylvania. Same state where Penn State is, and they're part of the Big Ten. Penn State is not going to play, having a death in their own state of a college athlete.
Yeah, swing state. POTUS was just there earlier in the week, Big C, trying to get. I want to close out on NBA basketball. I know it's just, you know, thoughts and prayers are not enough, Big C. NBA basketball in the bubble. LA Clippers, Kawhi Leonard gives the middle finger in a defensive block at the rim to help the Clippers defeat the Denver Nuggets. Big C, your thoughts?
And I didn't even know that there was a game on. You know, I was watching the BYU Navy game. So, I mean, the bubble hasn't taken my interest. I understand it's going to get down to the teams that they want, the Lakers and the
Clippers.
Other Los Angeles Clippers teams in the Western Conference Final, Charleston. It's going to get down to that. But, you know, when you watch an NBA game, does anything matter other than the last 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's a good game. I enjoy NBA basketball, Big C. I'm a West Coast guy.
He said he saved the game at the buzzer, Charleston, with a block. I mean, so the last 2 minutes is what determined the game.
No, it's getting up to it, but when you give somebody the finger, it has a new meaning now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, you know, you put a little tape on it, put it back together, go out and play.
Yeah, he must have found that vibranium because that was a strong finger to give somebody the finger that strong and block the shot. The big game tonight, we know we got the Bucks and the Heat, and it may be, you know, I don't give out scores, but it may be Giannis, you know, final chance to stand up in a green uniform. He'll probably be in the blue and gold of the Golden State Warriors next year, Big C. But the LA Lakers face the Houston Rockets, and the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, doing their thing with the Miami Heat. But the Lakers, they got to play big ball again. Don't try to outshoot them for three. Go down to the paint, make your money. If you're Houston, just fire everything if you're Houston and hope that you make enough baskets. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, you got to let James Harden be in the game, Charleston, if you're Houston. I mean, Russell Westbrook needs to understand that he needs to be a distributor, not a guy who wants to take over the game. Let James Harden lead the way. You got enough great shooters there in Houston, and if you run, you can take the Lakers out of the game.
Yeah, I'm a West Coast guy. I know I like the West Coast teams because I grew up out here. Love West Coast basketball. WNBA, the women will tip off on September 15th at OMG Academy in Brayton in Florida doing their things. In the NHL playoffs in Canada, whoa, Canada! Lightning strikes often as you have the Tampa Bay Lightning doing their thing. And then Major League Baseball, they're still in the swing of things. But to me, it's all about, you know, the young man that tragically lost his life trying to make white people rich, Big C. Not much different than slavery. And they're not even going to put the season on hold. Think about this. We got about another 2 minutes. NBA basketball was put on pause because 2 players from the Utah Jazz had test positive, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, for COVID-19. They put the whole sports world on pause. And as we've gotten so used to it, and the white society, for the most part, they've been telling everybody how they need to make the money again. How am I going to make it without $7 million? A player dies, young black kid. hardly anybody's talking about it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you always something about the coaches in college football, we don't have enough black coaches in college football to make a difference, to go out there and say we're going to play and we're not going to play. We don't have enough black presidents in college sports, Charlton, in universities, to go out there and say our university is not going to play. This is the thing we're looking at. It's not blacks making the decision. White guys are making the decision, the ultimate decision that these blacks are going to go out there and produce for us. If the decision makers were a different complexion, I wonder what the outcome of all college sports would be, Charlton. Would it be canceled? When we look at the NBA and the influence that the players have on the commissioners, on the owners, on the entire league, they said we're not going to play. They stopped the season. With a third of the season left to go. When you had black influence, it put a pause on all sports, Charlton. All sports. It went down to college basketball. It matriculated down there. That when these black guys in the NBA said we're not going to play, because they have their thumbprint on the commissioner, Adam Silver. They have influence. And when you don't have influence, Charlton, then you just become a rat lab.
It is. And it's a shame, but we already told you guys, why let someone make you put your life on the line so they can get rich? Make sure you register to vote. Text the word vote to 26797. Text the word vote 26797. Tell all your friends that Big C in the NFL and all good people said vote, especially in the swing state, makes this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we're 48 hours away from the kickoff of the opening game of the NFL season. The Houston Rock Texans going into Arrowhead, taking on the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. Two highest-paid quarterbacks in NFL history will be facing each other, and this is NFL history being made in that game. I also want to extend another warm thoughts and welcome to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, our first responders. You don't make the most money in the world, but you do the greatest job in the world.
You really do the greatest job in the universe. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m., follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever ask to go with that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.